suffer from my art. Now it's your turn. Yeah. It's nice to see you, Richard.
And you too, Si.
You know, it's so many times you've reached out to interview me and, you know, and then I waffle on about what I'm doing, but I want to turn it around the other way, because without you and people in radio, I wouldn't be here talking to you to begin with. So it's like looking back down the other way. And I thought for our fans, it'd be an interesting topic.
Absolutely.
And who better to pick than the Renaissance man of radio?
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you very much. I was just talking about it today on the radio, saying that I was looking forward to sitting down and chatting with you.
Oh, that's so great. And then we're survivors. I mean, Englishmen in the States, it's like, been here so long. When I go back to England, it feels incredibly small. How does that feel to you when you go back?
Absolutely. I have an autobiography out, and I wrote about returning to England, and it feels almost like the Wizard of Oz. You know how the first part of the movie is in black and white, and then suddenly it goes to Technicolor. It's like the reverse. You leave the Technicolor behind, and suddenly you're in this black and white world.
Yeah. And it's like, pizza at 4 a.m. What? Yeah. It's like, it just things like that. So you've been championing 80s music since I was aware of K-Rock, when we first came over, and way back when we first sort of hit on the Mittman. You already had your feet and you were on the ground running with it. And it's kind of, without what you're doing, the whole movement of that's grown around 80s music, it almost feels like it's still a new form of music, because it never died away. It brought us such a huge swathe of audience with it. And I just wanted to ask, how do you see it? Do you see it just as a nostalgia thing, or do you see it as like a massive market share that the corporations think that's a big ad buy right there?
I think you're right with the second part. I think it's a massive market share. And when I look at music that is still relevant today, I see 2 decades, and that's the 60s and the 80s. And I don't think the 60s are going to go away, thanks to bands like the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and the Doors and Beach Boys and so many other great groups. And the 80s, it kind of took me by surprise, because I was talking to someone that you know well, Howard Jones, one time. And I said, did you think your music was disposable pop back in the day? And he went, no one's ever asked me that before. He said, I have to think about that. But I actually thought 80s music at the time, maybe because I was so involved in it, as you were, and you get too close to the forest to see the trees sometimes.
Yeah, really.
It wouldn't last. And then I realized in the 90s, everyone was asking for 80s music. And then in the 2000s, they were still asking for 80s music. And then around about 2008, I think it was, it suddenly grew again. And the bands that were playing smaller clubs in the early 2000s, and I remember doing a small club with you, the Brixton in Redondo Beach.
Oh, no, Redondo Beach,
Yeah, the one under the pier.
Yeah.
Now, if you played there, you would sell out 10 nights without a doubt. Then it was like, great, you know, it's a packed house, but it's only one night.
Right.
Now, when the Fix go on the road, when you're playing, you're playing venues like the Greek Theater, which is 5,000 seats.
Yeah.
And it reflects on that with other bands as well. Howard Jones, who I just mentioned, is doing the same thing. Squeeze out on the road as we speak. They're selling out the same size. And
it's like a second summer.
Oh, it is.
In our careers.
Again, I'm gonna name drop Dave Wakelin.
Right.
Once he said to me, He said, "Make hay while the sun's shining." And right now, Richard, it's blazing down.
Yeah, I love the way he says it too. He's got that great Brummy accent, and
he has. And I was on the same stage as you've played and entertained the crowd just last Wednesday, the Pacific Amphitheater in Orange County.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
The people are just loving the 80s music. So like you say, it is major market share.
Yeah, I guess there's a kind of a, by the way, Richard, this is Doug Beck, my illustrious partner.
Pleasure to meet you, Richard. This is a delight for me. You're a fixture in our car and home. So this is a joy for me to finally get to meet you.
It's great to see you in person because we've been emailing back and forth, Doug.
Yes, sir.
And, great to be one with you.
So we've been buddies. I met Doug when he wanted to do a remix of One Thing Leads to Another for Jelly Bean Benitez back in the sort of mid 90s. And that's when I already got a sense that our music was going to take a twist. So Doug did this pretty industrial remix. And then from there, we went on and produced records together and made records.
There's a lot of record labels wanted to release that record too, which was telling at the time, that there was so much interest in a remix of that song.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of those tracks that won't go away. People just love One Thing Leads to Another. It's instantly catchy. Everyone knows the verse. And when you play it live, whether you're playing it live on stage or whether I'm DJing and putting it on, you can hear the audience blaring out the chorus louder than the song.
Yeah. It's like, that was back then. I thought, to get a hook, it was like get a well-known cliche in a way without making it too cheesy. And back then, when you asked that question to Howard, did you think it would last? I thought it would just be like a sort of a card to just get me into the party. And I go, hey, let's wave that. But here we are still later, the kind of relevance of our music and other bands of that era. It makes people feel maybe a little more secure to a time when things weren't the way they seem now. Things are kind of dark and it's like ominous, and we can't argue over how many sugars to put in a cup of coffee without getting into a food fight. It's ridiculous.
It brings up a question I'm dying to ask Richard. Do you find that people want new music from these acts? And the reason I ask this is I was on a message board, and I won't name the band, but it's a very popular 80s band that's on tour currently or just wrapped up a tour. And some fans were grousing that they didn't play some of their most well-known hits and had kind of leaned on much newer material. There were some of the hits in the encores, but some of the shows didn't have a second encore, so 2 or 3 of their biggest hits weren't played. What's your opinion on that, and how do you feel the audience reacts to that generally?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to give them the hits because in most cases, they grew up with us. They grew up with Psy. They grew up with Howard. They grew up with Squeeze, with Boy George, whoever it is. And they want to hear those songs to transport them back to those good times. As Psy said, now we're living through darker times. And they want to remember those great moments when they were discovering music for the first time. Maybe they were 13, 14 years old, and they're like, and saving up their money so they could go and buy the single or go and get the album. So you've got to give them the hits. If you play the new songs, then great, but you have to space them out, and you've got to be careful. If you play like 2 or 3 in a row, you're going to lose the crowd because they're going to go and buy beer. That's it.
We made that mistake. Yeah. We did a Jack FM show that we had a new album at the time, Beautiful Friction, and the drummer does our set list, Adam. He said, no, we should put a few new songs first. And it was like, what are they doing? So every big show that we do now, where it's like one of those kind of like multi-band things, we just do 12 hits and go.
And do you remember the last time you were here in town at Virgin, the Virgin Casino? I spent the whole next day sending you bitchy texts about why you didn't play Are We Ourselves? And it was the only one you didn't play. You played everything else, but I was so pissed.
I must have just missed
let you have it for sure.
Yeah, really.
When it's a band like The Fix and you're you've worked so hard putting together an incredible catalog of music. It's a shame not to play it. The perfect example of that is going back to, I think, like 93 for me. I'm probably getting the year wrong. Could be 92, could be 94. And David Bowie toured. And David Bowie is God. You know, I mean, he's the icon where so much of our music came from. But he was touring with Nine Inch Nails. And Nine Inch Nails had hit hard with Head Like a Hole and then Closer. And they were playing at the Forum. And Nine Inch Nails came out, and Trent Reznor just put on a rocking set. And I mean, extended version of Head Like a Hole, finished with Closer, fantastic. Bowie came on and played only the deepest cuts from his Berlin period, the low period, nothing else. And within 5 to 6 songs, the Forum was half empty. People were walking out on Bowie, and I left before the end. And I, you know, like I say, Bowie's God, but you've got to give the audience some hits, because that's why they're forking out the money. And particularly these days, I mean, concert tickets just going through the roof. I mean, Taylor Swift's tickets, I mean, what were they, like $2,500 and up?
Yeah, and up.
Yeah, but then she plays 3.5 hours, and they are the hits. You know, it's incredible. So now it must get frustrating for you though, Si, because you put out great new music, and it's hard to get it played, even though radio, terrestrial radio particularly, isn't the force it was because of Spotify and satellite and things like that. But we on Sirius XM every Tuesday we have a thing called New Sensation, where we deliberately play a new song from one of our great bands, and we back it up first with a classic and then go into the new song. But for bands like yourself, and for Pet Shop Boys, and for Depeche Mode, and for The Cure, it's hard to get the music played on radio, because radio says, okay, we'll play one thing. You know, we'll play something, you know, from the Fix that was a huge hit, you know, Red Skies. We'll put that on. We'll do that on our flashback lunch. But we won't play the new music because they're from that period. They're from the 80s. And it's like, no, wait, here's a new album. But radio is just locked into one particular direction, which is such a shame.
I mean, what that's done is really forced us to think about the live show, which is, you know, when we're doing a full Fix set, when it's just us on the bill, we're doing like 2 hours or 90 minutes. We'll do all the hits, but we'll pepper it with some of the new ones and a couple of the deeper cuts. And there's this kind of a skill. You give people what they want, because when you walk on stage, the excitement is what they've already feeling in their minds of what the show's going to be. So you give a little bit of a lead in with something everyone knows, and then you go in to a deeper cut. But radio program is completely different, because it's not just your show. You're having to be fit in. And if you're going to get the mention of the name, you might as well go in with your best shot, which is, to a lay audience, is going to be your biggest hit always, or the string of them. So it has, with social media, you can get the fans talking about the new music, and it, you know, we do end up preaching a little bit to the converted with our new music. But what happens is, when we get to the show, will there be a lot of people still, this is my first Fix show. And I'm like going, oh, great. And the reason it's still their first Fix show is that they still feel it's relevant, because radio, especially XM, you know, what you're doing at Sirius, is like pumping it out there. So kids are getting into it, and their parents are bringing their kids. So it's really a free-for-all. And then you lay on the new music. So it's really much a live setting for that, which in the end, that's going to be our bread and butter, you know.
No, absolutely. And we've started playing deeper cuts from the Fix as well. Yeah. And I think it's great to throw in those deeper cuts, and deeper cuts from Depeche Mode. I mean, yesterday I put on New Dress, which for me is not a deeper cut, but my social media just exploded. Oh, can't believe you played that. And it was people.
I love the deep cut channel, the first wave deep cuts. That's, you know, that's on at least half the time, I think, in my car, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, the relevance of an audience, they're remembering back then, but they also want to feel the kind of the bands that they liked then are still flying the flag for their for them. You're justifying their interest in you by still putting it out there. So it gives the audience relevance. So when people say, "Oh, you're still relevant," yeah, the songs were relevant back then, but what's making it relevant is the audience is still finding relevance in you. I don't
Well,
think
the audience has always loved you because you're such a performer. I mean, you came across in the videos so strongly. I mean, you focused on the camera, your eyes were locked on it.
Here
You
in
know,
the headlights.
yeah, well, it didn't come across that way. And you were, inside the tube, and you're walking towards the camera and doing that dance. And when you come on stage now, you involve the crowd, and people just love that.
Yeah, I mean, now that's growing the performance side of it. I used to be a little shy back then, believe it or not, but now I'm a little bit more confident with what the show's about. It's a community coming together. There's a communion of souls. That's how I see it. And the music is what brings it all together. And so there's a freedom in that allows you to perform on a sort of a bigger high. That's great. It's like the kind of thing, you scuba dive, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Do you still scuba dive a lot?
Yeah. Whenever we get the chance.
Yeah, that's great. So, when you come back up after you're slightly high on nitrous oxide. Mm-hmm. That's like when you're on stage, you feel like you're submersing yourself into another world, but at the same time, you're getting the nitrous oxide buzz that you get when you come out the water.
Yeah. It's that feeling of fulfillment, particularly when it's a good gig for you, I'm sure, because I know when I have finished a good DJ gig and everyone's had a great time and you sit in the car and you're driving home, you're like, that went well. You just feel, so good. Yeah.
It's really good. And so what I like also about what you're doing is that, there are some stories behind the songs that come out and you voice that. And Doug and I are planning to sort of do a different kind of show beginning in next year, probably some little residencies around California. It might be nice if we hook up at some point where you can expand, bring your audience in and we can bring our audience in and have a kind of a...
Oh, I would love that. I can even think of a couple of places that would be perfect for it. There's one down in Huntington Beach, actually on the beach.
Oh, nice.
Has a 10 o'clock curfew because of the lifeguards and homes and stuff. But it's so good. The crowd there just are so into the music and so into the artists. And that would be a great one to alternate. Well, I do like 30 minutes really and you do 30 minutes and then maybe do a little Q&A with the audience. I did that the last time I was down there. I said, I'm going to stop the music now, get off stage, got on the mic, said, do you have any questions? And for 20 minutes, all they wanted to do was ask questions about the 80s and what it was like. And then I got back up and played the music. I think that would be fabulous for you. We could do that together.
Yeah, because I think in so doing, taking people back to a time when they felt good about things, they may realize that things still are actually good. We're just being bombarded with a soup of toxicity that it's hard to swim in, find the clear water. We've got to get upstream a bit to the source of just, you don't have to feel guilty to have a good time. And you have, putting a good experience back into the world is actually a socially conscious thing to do. It's not just, I shouldn't be partying my face off whilst people are suffering, but you have to bring joy back into the conversation. Because if I sit and watch oh God.
I get that from the kids all the time when I'm DJing a party and a 15 or 16-year-old will come up to the booth with their friend. I'm like, oh, here we go, DJ Khalid or something like that. And they'll go, could you play Taylor Swift? Sure, I'll work that in. And Aha, and if you could do Kate Bush, and I'm like, sure. And then they stop and they go, I wish I'd grown up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And that's what these kids do, because to them, it was a colorful, fun time. And they look at movies like The Breakfast Club and Girls Just Want to Have Fun and things like that. And it's just a fun time.
Well, that's why I love your show, Richard. It's always such a good vibe. You always have such a good vibe. Always sound like you're in a good mood. I'm sure you can't be every day, but
most days
you sound great. And it's so like, I was telling Cy, every time we have a pool party, it's First Wave and one of your shows on, and it just sets the mood. Everyone's happy, having fun, and it takes away the dark clouds that may linger in the rest of your week.
Yeah. Next time, call me or email me, and I'll have to give you guys a shout out.
Oh, I would love that.
That's so good. So we've been prone. Doug's just had to lock his cat up in the bathroom before this show because every time we do something,
she's gone deaf. She's 15 and she lost her hearing. I have two of them that are 15, two senior cats.
Good for you.
And now they do that. They do get old.
This little cat didn't make a peep for 15 years and now screams like a banshee.
Oh.
And so I didn't want her to interrupt this thing.
You have two dogs, don't you?
I have two dogs. Yeah. They're in the kitchen with Chris.
They're in your studio with you, right? They're studio dogs?
Usually they are. And one of them's 14 and one of them's 12. So it's getting scary because we love them so much.
Yeah, I know.
And but the 14-year-old is the little one, and she's fast asleep right now. And the big one is the most mellow dog in the world. We just had a plumber around this morning. He walked in, sees this big dog lying there, and he goes, "Is it okay?" And I said, "Yeah, she's not going to even move." And she just looks up. It's great. I mean, Krista and I love our animals so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I often see you posting pictures. It's just kind of quite warming to see you and your doggies. I have
got the other end of the
spectrum. I have two little poodles, 16 weeks and 14 months. And they're like yin and yang. They sort of play together, constantly in a tussle and a little bundle of joy. And I thought it'd be, it's a bit cheesy. Here we are with our podcast talking about our dogs all the time, but I can't think of anything that makes me feel so good as much as that.
I know. It's like those memes that you see, and it's like the more I know about people, the more I love my dogs.
Yeah.
It's
really.
I think the most questions we've ever gotten on our podcast have been about your dogs and my cats. So that tells you we're not alone.
Yeah, so I wanted them to get a shout out because what makes somebody happy at home, obviously it's a good relationship, but the dogs, they have a sixth sense about, like, whenever you're feeling sad, they're on your lap.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you need to sort of catch the right thought, they kind of give you that little glint or thing, and it all falls into place. Like a bad day is avoided with a good little puppy moment, I find.
Yeah. Do you have that moment when you're watching a show or a movie on Netflix, particularly if it's like a thriller, and they have a dog, and you're like, oh no, they're gonna kill the dog? My wife, the moment she sees the dog, she says, if something happens to the dog, we're turning it off.
Yeah.
She doesn't mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, she doesn't mind if the wife or the kids or the hero or the bad guy gets something happening.
It's so
if
true.
the dog is touched, that's
I still haven't seen Marley and Me. I refuse to watch it.
Oh, that's a weeper.
Oh, can I tell you a story about that? We were on a plane flying back from, I'm not sure, it might have been Cancun, where you're going to be in November at 80s in the Sand. I'll be with you there.
On the election night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
November for the event.
Oh my goodness! We're packing to leave if it goes the wrong way. But we were flying back on the plane, and I think I was crashed out because I'd done a whole bunch of gigs and like a meet and greet in the afternoon before we'd left, and I was fast asleep. And suddenly we got severe turbulence, and I woke up, and I looked around. And the stewardess has got the cart going, or the flight attendant, sorry, has got the cart going, and people are walking. So I'm like, what about the turbulence? And I look, and it's Krista in the seat next to me. And she's going, and I'm like, are you okay? And she goes, I shouldn't have watched it. And I said, what were you watching? Marley and Me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she woke me up.
That's just, it really does
entertainment for me. That's for sure.
Oh, have you read Racing in the Rain? The Art of Racing in the Rain?
No.
Incredible book. And they made a movie out of it that was pretty good. But the book is fantastic. And it's told from a dog's point of view.
Oh, wow.
About his owner who wants to become a race driver. But the dog gets older and older as the book goes on. I can only tell you that the last part of the book, I was reading it on the beach in St. Martin, bawling. I'm bawling. But it's a great book, and it's worth reading because there's a twist. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So we go on about animals all day.
Yeah.
Because it's better us. But the other thing I want to bring up is you're very prolific in your book writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I call you the Ken Follett of radio.
Yeah, I've got 5 novels now out, and I've got another novel I want to write next year. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be a horror. I've never written horror.
Right.
I want to write a horror story.
Well, maybe next year's quite apropos if
it could be. Yeah,
Cancun.
I just write the facts next year. But what I'm working on now is something particularly Cy will relate to, and you will, Doug, as well. So many people have asked me questions about World in My Eyes things I didn't put in. So I'm going to release in November on the 7th anniversary of the original book, World in My Eyes, remastered and expanded.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
So I'm working on that right now, and it's going to be it's big already, the book. That's why I didn't keep going. It's 500 pages.
Are you going to tell the stories you were afraid to tell in the first one? Because there were some pretty juicy stories in the first one.
Well, I don't think I don't think I've got any of it I was afraid to, but there's a few that I didn't talk about, and there's a few that I'm going to expand. But it's going to be an extra 200 pages and an extra 100 photographs. So it's going to end up about
any names
in the book. Yeah, 3. I changed 3 names.
Right.
One out of respect to the person, I didn't want to embarrass them.
Right.
And 2 just for legal reasons, because I didn't want to get embroiled in a nuisance lawsuit, because I would have won in the end, because I had so many people around me that saw what I was writing about.
Right.
I didn't make it up. But, in America, anyone can sue for anything. And,
sure thing.
Yeah, no kidding.
So why get into that? So I changed the name.
Yes, like that baby reindeer.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Talk about a lawsuit. Bloody hell. Do you like writing in the morning or at night?
Not at night. Night is my time with my wife.
Yeah.
We have, we have a set thing that she's an incredible cook. And so
there you go.
I walk the dogs while she starts. Well, actually, in the summer, we swim in the for an hour in the afternoon. And then we get out. I walk the dogs. She starts cooking. Come back. We have our one beer of the night together while she's cooking. Nice. And then we go in and watch TV, but we only watch 2 shows. We never binge.
Right.
So
okay.
Baby Reindeer was one of them. Fantastic show. Love that. Yep. And at the moment, we're watching A Good Girl's Guide to Murder.
Okay.
Which is a BBC show on Netflix.
Yeah.
We're watching The Boys on Amazon Prime, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's an anti-superhero show. And if you ever want to get shit-faced drunk, excuse my French, do a drinking game. Every time they say the word, Ricky Gervais's favorite word that begins with a C, take a shot. You'll be drunk. You'll be drunk within 15 minutes.
I mean, so it's that kind of script.
Oh, yeah, but it's a great show. And the other one is on Netflix. We're watching at the moment, Umbrella Academy.
Oh, yeah, I saw the first 2 of those. I like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, appeals to the adolescent thing for the beginning, but then it gets kind of cerebral, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the final season 4, has just started. So Krista and I, who tend to have amnesia about our shows, we always go, well, before we watch season 4, let's watch the last episode of season 3.
Yeah, that happens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're 10 minutes into the last episode of season 3, and I hit pause. And she looks at me, and I look at her, and I went, start with season 3, episode 1. Because we couldn't remember any of it. It was so we're blessed because we got 2 seasons to watch of it, even though we'd already watched season 3.
Yeah, it's great.
It's fantastic. So that's our nighttime.
It's nice to hear that you've made a beautiful ritual out of your relationship.
How long have you been married, Richard?
Honey, how long we've been married now?
Oops.
20.
Season 2.
How long?
Come in and say hi. Oh, we've been together 30 years and married coming up on 24 years.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Fantastic. She is she's the best, and she loves, if possible, animals even more than me, if possible.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I always have a thing is that when Jamie in the band, who's had the longest lasting relationship out of all of us, I think, may be wrong, but whenever he says, I'd like to wish my wife a 30th anniversary, wedding anniversary tonight, and I say, well, I've been married 35 years, not to the same person. I spent 35 years married. And so he always looks at me, he goes, arsehole.
Yeah.
Or steal my moment. But
yeah. Now, do you have your place in France still?
I'm more invested in Cabo now. You'll have to come down there with you.
Richard would be a great addition to what we're talking about doing down there.
Yeah.
Fisher, my love, that I'm with now, 12 years, owns a bed and breakfast. It's like a little Zen hideaway.
Wow.
It's far enough from the madness, but near enough to the ocean. So you can walk into town, walk back, you can walk to the ocean, but you can hide away from all the nonsense when you need to. So when I'm not up here, that's where I am, down there.
And I have a place right across from you.
Oh, wow.
If you went due east and slightly south, I have a place in Sayulita, which is just north of Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, there you go.
On the Pacific coast.
Right.
So on a clear day, we could probably get our binoculars and wave at each other.
Yeah, we'll have to have a little ritual cocktail at some point together. Yeah.
Now, do you speak Spanish? Because I know you spoke fluent French.
Yeah, I speak French, but I've been a bit late to the party, and my Spanish is basically French with a Spanish accent. I understand a lot of the words I understand, but I don't really know. I haven't got the gift yet, but my stepsons around here are like fully fluent, and
wow.
So we're getting it. I think I'm like that guy from the John Cleese when he's talking to Manuel. He just talks louder.
Yeah,
like
that's all faulty.
They have a habit of talking when you want to be understood by someone in another language. Just speak your own louder.
Yeah, louder and slower.
Yeah, I say, garçon.
Oh anyway. My goodness. Faulty Towers was set in my hometown. I grew up in Torquay. Yeah. Sunny Devon.
Yeah, I love Torquay. Used to go down there bombing down the M4 with my mates. In fact, my old schoolmate Chris O'Connor has a house in Torquay still.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good spot. One of the few places where I've actually seen the sea turquoise once. It almost looked like the Caribbean. I was like, I don't believe this. Looks like I'm in a tropical isle.
Yeah, there's some lovely areas. You go out to like Babbacombe or Elbury Cove on the way to Brixham. And you can get clear water there because of the white pebbles and stuff like that. It's
shallow and sandy underneath.
Yeah.
Super nice.
Is there a project that you want to work on? Like writing became my project after World in My Eyes, and I realized, okay, I can write a book, and that's what that's where the novels came from, Doug.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
I mean, I'm really envious of you that you've sort of taken that step down that path, because I've often thought about it. And then my excuse is, well, I haven't finished living chapter 9 yet.
But that's a fair enough excuse, because World in My Eyes finishes in 2002. And everyone says, when are you going to do the sequel? And, I've got a couple of things in the pipeline. And if one of those happens, that will be the great wrap up for the sequel. Everyone said, well, you got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, in June. Why don't you use that as the wrap up? And I'm like,
June 9th is Richard Blade Day, I believe, right?
That's right. Yeah. It got a star on June 6th, and then the city declared June 9th my day. It was crazy. But there's one other thing that I would like to happen first, and then that would be the wrap up of the sequel. So so I
with it.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. It's but you've done so much in your life. Autobiography would be great from you. I remember bringing you on stage at Hollywood Park with the Police, Thompson Twins, and Berlin. That was a fantastic show you put on.
Yeah, that was the day I told Irving he's off to stand on a box when we were having a photo session. He was giving me a platinum album. And we were having the photo moment, and he was short, right? Oh, sorry, whatever they say, PC way of saying that. And I said, maybe you want to stand on a box. And I was like, I don't know, my manager went, what are you trying to fucking nuke your career, you fathead? And I was like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
It must have been the mushrooms or something.
Yeah.
Great day. Great
Yeah.
day.
Yeah,
My mum wrote a book, and she used to say, yes, I wrote a book, but it ends the day my first child was born. I was like, oh, great. Thanks, Mom. How do you react to that as a child? But I've always felt that, when you want to write a book, is it a sneaky mystery, a period of your life where you kind of, when you kind of something and tell, what do they call that? Blah, blah, blah.
Well, kiss and tell?
Kiss and tell. Or is it something that's just fully open where it's like, warts and all the boring stuff and the good stuff? Because life is made up with these, what used to be boring is now called a ritual. But, there's a lot of things. So it's just changing the perspective on the spin. So I'm just arriving at that point where I think I could really take the piss out of myself and write a good book.
Would you want to write it about yourself and do a memoir, an autobiography, or would you want to write a fictional one about a rock star and do that?
Yeah, maybe. I would turn myself into an owl and write it from the owl's perspective.
Yeah.
Like Archimedes in The Wizard, Sword and the Stone,
If you do the autobiography, I'd like to contribute a few choice chapters from the mid-90s, if you don't mind.
Doug came into my life at a quite tumultuous period where I was just going through my second divorce, I think, and I suddenly discovered that I was living in Soho in New York. And
well, while we were in the middle of your second solo record.
Yeah.
Right? Because we were literally in the middle of that record when you split.
Yeah,
wow.
It just happened. So that was crazy time, but it was actually an amazing time too. I remember seeing Richard Butler from Psychedelic Furs walking down the other side of the street, and he looked like he was living the same nightmare as I was at the time. It was like later we've hung out together we soon cleaned up our acts, and we did. And luckily, that second summer of our careers came along, thanks to people like you, Richard, flying that flag. And, we're all kind of keeping this light going. And it's not just the weight, it's a sort of a light that reminds people that good times aren't that far away. It's just a thought away, right?
No, and if I remember correctly, when you were at the Pacific Amphitheater, Psych Furs were on the same bill, and so were the Church.
Yeah. A great gig that was, wasn't it?
Fantastic show.
Under the Milky Way tonight. Yeah. Man.
Yeah. And what a venue as well. And that outside, it's awesome. 9,000 people, just wonderful. Yeah.
I think there's word from Rob, the manager, that we'll be back there next year if it's something cool. There's some festival that we're lining up for. So it'll be great. But let's get this On the Sands thing going. That's going to be great down at the Westin in Cancun, right?
Yeah, I'm looking for. Don't go to the Westin. That's the wrong. You'll be playing at the wrong venue. It's Planet Hollywood.
Oh shit!
It's Planet Hollywood. But as tacky, when they booked Planet Hollywood, I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be plastic and tacky. It's fantastic, and the beach is beautiful. It's white sand, warm, clear water. Every morning I get up at 8 and go to the beach, and nobody else is there because it's all inclusive, all drinks and all the entertainment. So people are drinking till 3 a.m. and passed out. I would go to the beach, swim for 35, 40 minutes and walk 2-3 miles on the beach and come back. And then the first morning birds down there last year were Nick and Jack from Wang Chung. Because they are not big partiers. So they came down and it was like just 3 of us on the beach. It was funny. And then some of the regular folks there came down and they're like, could you just wait here a second? We got to go get our cameras. It's like, okay, no problem.
The early bird catches the worm.
Yeah.
I got to make that trip this year. If I know anyone that can get me a backstage pass.
I think arranged.
I think between us, we could probably take care of that, Doug.
Richard, it's really great to see you. And that you really do give me a sense of joy. A, you still play my music. B, you're a really fun guy and you're a solid survivor. And I think those are the 3 ingredients that you're a stand-up dude.
And we appreciate the daily good vibes. As I speak as one of your fans.
Oh, well, Doug, thank you. I think, you just have to enjoy it. We go around once, and the scary thing is the older you get, the faster time goes. When you're 2 years old, summer is 1/8 of your life experience. If you are 60 years old, and I'm older than that, if you're 60 years old, summer is 1/240th of your life experience. And Einstein said, because time is perception, it does seem to go fast. I remember being like 15 and going, oh, am I ever going to be 18? It's going to be 100 years before I'm 18. And now I turn around and 3 years have gone. I'm like,
yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But you know what? You get it back in its place, the wisdom you've just imparted into the microphone. That's what you get. And that's the gold. The wisdom. It's like what stops your heart racing and stops your mind depressing.
Yeah.
And then you pass it on to whoever, a stranger, anyone who'll listen. And that's why we're here talking.
Yeah, well, it's always good to talk with you, I must say, and it's always good to see you live. When I don't get to see the Fix in a year, I'm missing something. Yeah,
well, I know if I see you, I'm going to be working, so that's a great thing too.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I love you, Richard.
I love you right back, Si.
Much for being
Doug,
on.
I love you as well now.
Yeah, nice now I got to come to Cancun so I can meet you in person. I got
you'll be there.
Many excuses to give the wife why I have to take off that week.
Okay, the three of us are going to sit around the TV after the performance from the Fix, and after I've done my DJ set, and we're going to watch the results come in.
Oh yeah!
All right.
Oh
it's going to be that night, November 5th, that we're going to be together on stage.
Oh, that's a great plan. Let's do it.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yes, for sure.
All right. All right. Your dogs a hug, and your illustrious wife, who I hope she cooks you the best meal of your life.
Oh, every night it's the best.
Every night.
Yeah, I'm so lucky.
What a pleasure.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
See you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.